What's up, my financially intentional people? I am so ecstatic to be joined by Anthony Delauney. We are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is children's financial literacy. How do we teach these kids about money? Because so many of us were not taught about money. I know I wasn't. And so it has been one of those uphill battles for me to understand how to talk to my kids about money. Obviously, they're still pretty young, but they live in this space. So it's a little bit different for my kids. But overall, I think we all struggle with this. So I'm super juiced to have Anthony come and talk to us about this subject so that we can have more tools in our tool belt when it comes to talking to our kids about money and teaching them financial literacy. So welcome, Anthony. I am so honored that you chose to join me.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So let's just get right into it. First of all, what made you interested in children's financial literacy?
I've been in the financial services industry for about 21 years. I came into finance basically right out of college. And in that time, I ended up getting married, having a child, having kids, purchasing my first home, going through all those fun stages. And I realized that I had a love for helping families. It's hard enough to figure it out on your own, but then when you start to incorporate a spouse or kids into the picture, it's like a giant puzzle piece that you're trying to put it all together. And it gets a little bit crazy. I've just always felt that was a really passionate area for myself, and I loved helping families. In terms of bringing the books to life, it's a little bit of a sad story. I actually, back in 2015, had a cousin that was very, I guess you could say, famous in the fitness world. His name was Greg Plitt, Plitt. And Greg unfortunately passed away unexpectedly. He was only 37 at the time. But even before vlogging and all that was a thing, Greg had a website where members were emailing questions on life and fitness. And he would have videos to answer those questions. And as a way of remembering my cousin, who was basically like an older brother to me, I'd watch those videos. And just as I was watching them, I realized a lot of his philosophies as they applied to fitness could also apply to finance, which seems to be the way life works. Just all these things connect in one way or another.
Yes.
So I thought, how could I share this with others? How could I give a testimonial to my cousin? And I decided I'd write a book about it. And one of his videos was actually on the concept of death, oddly enough, and the idea of owning the dash, which basically on your tombstone, between your birth and your death dates, you have that dash in between. And it's just the idea of taking ownership of your life and making the best of this time that we have, because it is finite. We never know when it's going to end. So that just really hit me hard, especially given the environment, given the scenario with writing the book. I said, that's got to be the title. And that book came to life. And it was really geared towards helping young couples, young families get those initial steps, figure out what to do. Because it seems like that's the hardest part. It's all of a sudden you're out of the childhood years, you're starting off trying, and it's like, when we were growing up, it was hard to get access to information. Now there's information everywhere, but that's almost worse because you don't know what's right, what's wrong. There's that idea of analysis paralysis, just so much stuff out there. I put together this book that was my best practice advice for, at the time, the past 15 years of serving in that world. And a lot of people liked it. They said it was great. And they said, that's great, but what about one for those like planning to make the transition into retirement? And I said, when COVID hit, I basically said, all right, I'll take on that challenge. And that was a fun one. But while I was writing my second adult self-help book, my daughter, who is now 14, at the time was about 11, she's one of those kids that doesn't sleep at night. For all the parents out there, I'm sure, yes, you know exactly where I'm coming from. So I would write during the evening hours, and basically I'd be writing during the evening, and then all of a sudden I look to my side and there's my daughter, hi, Daddy, just at 10 o'clock at night or whatever it might be. And I'm just... So she would come in and we'd start writing next to each other. And she'd write her stories and I'd write mine. And then we came up with the idea of writing a children's picture book. And the first book came to life. It was called Dash and Nikki and the Jelly Bean Game. And if you take a look at the cover, you might notice two kids that look a lot like my two kids. That book basically just had, are you familiar? Have you ever heard of something called the marshmallow study from years back?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So just if anyone hasn't heard, like the marshmallow study was just, you put kids in a room and give them a marshmallow and say, I'll be back in a minute. If the marshmallow is still there, we'll give you another marshmallow. And we studied to see if the kids can resist or not. So I just love that story because so many parents can relate to. I know how my kid might react or how I might react to that story or that scenario. And we just created a story where a brother and sister wake up one morning and there's a letter waiting for them, inviting them to play the jelly bean game. And they basically go downstairs. They find a giant jar of jelly beans with plates on each side and 10 jelly beans. And the note says for every hour that they can resist the 10 jelly beans, every hour 10 jelly beans sits there, they'll get 5 more. And the brother, who happens to be a little bit like my son, he really competitive. He wants to win. I'm going to get all those jelly beans. And whereas the sister, my loving daughter, she gave me approval to write it this way, but yeah, she might be a bit more impulsive and might have just in the first 3 minutes down the jelly beans. So we get to find out in the story kind of just what it's like, delayed gratification, seeing something grow. So it was a fun way of introducing a basic financial lesson. And there's a twist that happens in the story where the brother helps his sister out. So some compassion and things of that nature. But that story was a lot of fun to bring to life. And when we did, we found out there was just a giant demand for people that want to try to figure out how do I introduce financial literacy to that age group. We often think about financial literacy for teens and for young adults. Really, if we can get, just like brushing your teeth, if we can get those principles started early, then it just makes it a little easier for down the road. So
Yeah,
that book came to life and then more followed after.
love it. First of all, I just want to say, like, when you're talking about honoring your older cousin, right? Yeah, that like really touched me. But also the moment of just like sharing time with your daughter, even though it can be very annoying when your kids don't go to sleep at night, like turning that into a positive experience when you're riding shoulder to shoulder. It was so touching. So I really love that. And I'm glad that your kids get to share in this experience with you. So that was just great to hear. You talked about teaching kids earlier. I want to know, like, how early is too early in your book?
So I think it depends on the lesson. So a lot of times, because it's been a question that's been posed to me just across the board, when do I start teaching my kids about trading? And I think it's the hard part. A lot of people want to learn or teach their kids the hard stuff, right? They want to teach their kids about trading stocks and building wealth and things like that. And most 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds, so forth, they don't even understand money by itself. They can't earn it. They can't really put it in a savings account yet. So money doesn't really have value, which is in a way why I decided to go with jelly beans for the first game, because while kids can't understand money, sometimes they can understand candy, or they can show value in different areas, and different parents know what their kids do value. But I think going back to your question on what lessons to teach, it's if there's a big thing I've learned, it's the fundamentals are as if not more critical than the fun stuff of finance, if you want to call it fun, than the exciting stuff.
Black stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like we try to teach our kids from an early age how to brush their teeth properly and how to, go take care of their room and things of that nature. If we can teach kids the basics of just how the money works, what's in the family budget. And the word budget sounds a little bit crazy, but these are the things that mom and dad pay for, right? These are the things that we use money for. And sometimes, for my son as an example, we would always go to a grocery store or whatnot, or to a gas station. He'd be, "Oh, Dad, can you buy me this? Can you buy me that?" I say, let's just make a game out of it. I want you to find what you really want here and tell me how much it is. And then when we go to the grocery store, I want you to tell me how much it is there. And then so now it's stuck in the back. They're thinking, they're turning it into I can get 2 of these for the same price as I could at this location. And it just gives them a sense of ownership. It's amazing how much kids want to be parents when they're really little. They want to play grown up. They want to act like they dress up like their parents. They want to act like their parents. So the sooner we can start teaching them those kind of foundational ideas of being responsible and thinking about where we're spending money and things like that, that's where the lessons start to kick in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think big word when you talked about people want to jump to those flashy things for their kids, but it's because they want to jump to those flashy things for themselves and don't really understand the basics of finance. Even people who went to school for finance or are in some kind of finance profession, they don't understand the basics of personal finance. That delayed gratification, like, is a super important lesson, but people don't think about that as a financial literacy lesson. They think, I have to learn how to invest. For me, my big thing was I thought I was bad with money because I didn't know how to invest. And I thought investing was like going like on the floors of the exchanges and knowing how that works and thinking about all the degrees that I have. And I literally have to sit down and basically get a degree in finance to understand really how to build wealth. And it really wasn't those things. It was like really understanding how to create a simple personal budget, how to like those basics that I never learned, those things that aren't flashy are just those things that we take for granted, are those things that also are taboo, like budget. Ooh, that's a bad word. But those little basic things are the things that have really accelerated my own financial literacy, which accelerated my path to building wealth. And so I like that you mentioned that because we want to give the things to our kids that we didn't have. And so we think that they need all of these things when really they just need to learn these basic lessons. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. And I'd add to that one other big piece, because like you said, we want to give our kids a better life than we have and give them all the leg up or whatever you want to call it. But there's a real cautionary tale on trying to introduce things to kids at too young of an age. And my fourth book is called Rohan and Naira and Big Sister's Bet. And it actually, the story behind this book was I was in my backyard just throwing the football with my son. And I said, all right, I'll make you a bet. For every catch that we make, I'll give you 25 cents. And the only deal is you can say when we stop, but if at any point we fumble the ball, you lose all the money. And so we started throwing. He had an idea on what he wanted to get. He had kind of a target goal for, all right, I'm going to try to build up to this level. And so we started throwing and he got to $5. Then he got to $10, then to 15. And as he was getting further up, he started pausing. And I kept asking, are you sure you want to keep going? And he would pause, but then say yes. And he got up to $18.75. And then I said, are you sure? Are you sure? And he said, just one more, Dad, just one more. And of course, I threw the ball. There's the fumble, which stinks. But the thing that was really interesting was after he fumbled it, he paused and he didn't get upset at me because he knew it was his decision. He just sat and thought for a moment. And I realized this is going to be a memory he's never going to forget. He's always going to remember that he allowed the emotion, the greed, basically, to get the better of him. He had built up the $18 and then it faded away. And I said, I've got to turn this into a story. So.
But that's incredible because that's like also how people get caught up in gambling too. I think that's a good thing.
And so going back to the idea of trying to teach kids about investing, a lot of times when especially these days with so many apps and so forth, whenever you make an investment, you'll hear a ding. It's almost like being in a casino where it gives you a reward. It gets the dopamine up just to hear that sensation of the ding or the confetti or whatever it might be. And then kids start to associate investing with emotion, which is usually the worst thing that you can do in finance. Money and emotion don't always go well together. So it's really, those fundamentals are really important, but also being mindful of when do I want to be introducing things to my kids that maybe they're just not emotionally ready to handle? Maybe even the adult is not emotionally ready to handle. So yeah, it's odd when you just step back and look at the grand picture, you realize that those fundamentals really are the essential building blocks of kind of just financial confidence down the road. It's crazy.
But I think it's just phenomenal to me. I'm very impressed on the way that you're able to incorporate these lessons in just day-to-day things that you do with your kids. Is this something that you intentionally had to learn or just something that comes natural to you?
I think that most times when we write, it's based on personal experience. Something has happened and it's just, you can really give a true story to something when you have been through it or you've seen someone who's gone through it. I think that a lot of the stories do have some type of personal connection. Being in the finance world for 2 decades, I've seen a lot. But to say that it comes naturally, I will say that you're going back to how great it is to have your kids help you with writing books. They are also the best critics in the world because they're going to be honest with you. And
oh my God,
all of the Owning the Dash kids books, they all rhyme and and it's so much fun for me to have that initial draft to show to them. And they go, no, Dad, no kid would ever say that. Or, sorry, Dad, this isn't a Christmas Carol. Okay, we need to shift it back. Or, Daddy already used that rhyme 3 times. I'm sorry, cut it out. So they're wonderful, but it's an experience. I'll leave it at that.
These are just things that you just picked up along the way. So I love it, but it's just so relatable and it seems attainable. I think when we think about teaching our kids about money, because we may not have been taught about money or we have some kind of shame about money mistakes that we've made, I feel like a lot of parents are overwhelmed and they think they have to teach something that they don't understand. But these concepts, these basic concepts that you brought up are things we fundamentally understand. And so I think it just makes it that much easier for us to be able to incorporate things into our educating our kids, but also in our understanding. And I think what I like to do is when I teach about kids' financial literacy, I like to say, I tricked you because I know you would come. I know you would show up if you thought it was about the kids. But really, these are lessons for you. This is about you. Because I think that I'm going to give you permission to just be okay with the fact that you didn't learn these things. And it's fine. Just because you didn't know these things doesn't mean that you can't learn. It's not too late for you. But as a bonus now, you get some tools for your kids.
So I love, maybe the word trick is a little, it's appropriate, but one thing I'll share when I started writing the kids' books that was really powerful to me is that I was told by individuals in the world that never have a parent tell the child what to do in the book. And the reason for that is kids immediately pick up on that. It has to be a sibling or a friend or something happening where the kids are in a situation where they're in control of their decision making and they have ownership of the decisions, where versus the parent saying, do this, and the child just automatically does it. Because as all parents know, that doesn't always happen that way. Part of the reason I decided children's books would be a great way to introduce this concept is when you're reading with the child, they're experiencing the sensations. They're thinking, what is this character going through? And how would I react in this situation? And really, the books are meant to be read. They're like Dr. Seuss books. They're written to be read aloud and they rhyme and they're a bedtime reading type book. So the fun part is that it is something that brings the family together where either a parent or a teacher is with a student or a parent sitting with a child. They're having a scenario that they're talking about. And then afterwards, what would you do in Nikki's position? What would you do in Dash's position? And it can get a conversation started. Whereas the kids don't feel like mom and dad are just trying to, force me to do something else right now.
And it also gives us an opportunity to maybe talk about some of the things that we have done, our lessons that we've learned. So yes, I love that because we can all feel those things. And that's the power of stories and storytelling is you put yourself in that position. So I just think it's so powerful. So at this point, how many children's books have you written?
So I just released my 5th and my 6th one is actually going to be coming out in October later this year. Each talks about a different foundational topic. My goal is potentially to have 9 kids' picture books, one for each month of the school year, of the traditional school year.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Fortunately, I've discovered a lot of teachers are finding that they can incorporate them into the classroom to address some of the elementary school curriculum studies.
I was going to ask that. It sounds like it goes hand in hand with some things that we can do in schools and if you are in school systems. So is that just local to you or nationwide?
Right now, we have some in Arizona and Oklahoma, and so nationwide is the simple answer.
Nice. Okay. I got to see if we can get some of those in my school district in Northern California.
Happy to. It's all about trying to promote financial literacy. So absolutely happy to help.
Yes. I love it. Yes, we need more books like that in the school system. So I'm gonna see what I can do. So outside of these children's books, Mike, what other ways are you promoting financial literacy for kids, but for everyone?
I think getting involved in as many ways as you can, and just knowing. So this actually, my most recent book, and I'm not going to try to go back to the books, but I think it's important. It relates to your question. My most recent book is called Akash and Mila and the Big Jump. And the focus of the book is actually on judgment. And I will say that in all the years I've been a financial planner, the biggest roadblock I've seen to people actually taking control of their lives, of their finances, is that fear of judgment. And you can do all the little things right or wrong, but if you allow that fear to override your willingness to believe in yourself, to believe you can get out of the debt, as you're such a great example, or just that you can achieve these dreams that you have. I think that if there's one way I'm really trying to promote individuals or to get out there in the community and so forth is not only for children, but for adults to get that sense of we can do this. That hope is probably the best word I can offer, because right now, especially just over the past several years, the world seems a bit chaotic and just difficult. So if we could show that, hey, there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We've been through craziness before and we can support each other. I think that's probably the biggest part. Just like this wonderful podcast, you're giving back and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. And I think you are right. Like, it's about really trying to understand what we have control over and doing the best that we can. And a lot of times there is a lot of shame around maybe money mistakes that we have made. And so instead of using those as lessons for things to improve, a lot of people push that stuff down and it becomes issues later on. And I always tell people, celebrate those mistakes, because all successes are paved from a path of failures, right? So little mini failures have gotten you to the place where you have become successful. So it's so important to fail forward is the terminology that I'm looking for, right? Failing forward and not being ashamed. And yeah, the world is crazy right now. And I think if we can hold on to the things that we can control and the things that the little things that we can do to improve our lives, I feel it's the aggregation of marginal gains, like those small little things we can do every day to make our lives better. And sometimes we don't see that us doing it for ourselves, but we can do it for our kids. And if that is just in reading them these books and having those conversations, I think that those are great steps forward. Where can people reach out to you and find your books and get them in their school systems and get them in front of their kids or other kids that they care about? How can people get these things in their lives?
Sure. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So the best place would probably be owningthedash.com, OWNING, the DASH.com. Mm-hmm. So that site has access to all the books. In addition, there's a tab called Educators or for Educators. Mm-hmm. And there's free downloadable questions that teachers or parents can use, as well as games or activities that are all free that are associated with each one of the books. There is a password to get into them, but I'll share it with your listeners right now. The password is owning my dash ! With the O, the M, and the D all capitalized. So owning my dash ! But yes, it's all in there, as well as links to all the books. They're available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the different places books are sold. But yes, it's exciting to just bring financial literacy to kids to life. It's neat to see it happening.
Yes, and I'm excited to read these books to my kids, because we like talking about money around here. Any way that we can talk about it in a new way is always great. So I will put all the links in the show notes, as well as the password, if that's okay. Yeah. So I'll put all of that there, as well as where people can reach out to you. Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, this has been it's been a wonderful conversation. I loved it. Yes. And I'm really, really grateful. And no, thank you. Thank you so much.
No, I love it. I really love how you've been able to incorporate these lessons into teaching your kids and just using day-to-day examples. And I feel like I've learned so much in these last couple of minutes that I can implement. And so I'm grateful and I appreciate you. And I just know our listeners will be able to learn so much from you. And I'm in awe of all your certifications and experience. But I think one thing to have all of the knowledge and to be able to help people walk through retirement. But I feel like it's a whole different skill set to be able to talk through to the masses, but then an even greater skill set to be able to teach our kids in a way that these lessons are digestible and are something that they can use in adulthood. And like you said, they're transferable, just like diet and exercise. Once you become intentional in one area, you can start to be intentional in other areas. So for you to be able to gracefully articulate these things in a way that kids can understand, I think it's phenomenal. So I'm super impressed and I'm appreciative of you being on my cast. I am very grateful for you taking this time out and sharing with my audience.
Thank you. If I could share one last thing, just for the listeners, all of the books, one thing I also try to incorporate with all the books is that each book involves a different family. And what a lot of individuals will notice if they take a look is that each family, I wanted to make sure that kids, no matter where they're from or what they look like or what their situation is, they felt like they could relate to the kids in the books. So what you'll notice is that what we find out later in the series is that all of these kids actually live in the same neighborhood and they start interacting and doing a lot together. But my big hope is that kids, no matter what the situation feels like, they can relate and they can feel connected to the kids in the series. So it's all about bringing us all together.
I love that. I love that. And it's about accessibility and for the fact that you understand that kids need to often see people that look like them or from similar situations for them to be able to apply those lessons is super important. And again, I'm grateful because representation does matter and oftentimes it's overlooked in the personal finance space. And so I'm glad that you're able to bring that, just like I feel like I do.
You do. You definitely do. And thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And thank you again. Another great episode. And I'm looking forward to those books. And again, everything, all the links and the password will be in the show notes. So I hope you guys snatch those up because I just know that you'll love them and your kids will love them. So again, thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.